Hi there. So we'll continue talking about moral principles from chapter 1 of our bioethics book. So um, today's kind of a interesting day for you because we'll start to talk about autonomy. So autonomy is a person's right to make their own decisions, or what we call self-governance. So self-governance right here. All right. So what does that mean? So self-governance is to be informed. So autonomy is your right to be informed, to make decisions that affect your well-being. So in medicine, patients have the right of autonomy. So if I have a physician orders me to give a medication to a patient and they go in their room, they say, no, I don't want it. I can't force them to do it. I'm not supposed to coerce them or talk them into it because that violates their right to autonomy. So autonomy is also dependent on informed consent. Now, we're going to talk about informed consent a lot in the future, but informed consent means that I have to be told what the medication or treatment or testing or research is about, what I would benefit from, the potential harm that could come. So informed consent is not just, hey, is it okay if I do this? But I have to tell you everything about it before I do it. All right. By the way, children, right, are not autonomous until they're 18 years old or deemed by the court to be autonomous. Okay? So you don't really have those rights. Right? So if a physician talks to a parent about a treatment and informs the parent about it, the parent can just say, hey, you should do this. Right? They don't really have to discuss it with you in the same regard. And that's the principle of paternalism. Right? So paternalism says we override your autonomy, right? Where your decisions could create harm to yourself or others. So, for an instance, somebody who likes to steal stuff, right? They're exercising their autonomy to make decisions that affect their well-being, right? But as a society, we can use a principle of paternalism to say, we're going to go ahead and incarcerate you and put you in jail, which is a violation of your autonomy, right? Because we will no longer let you be informed and make decisions that affect your future. Same sort of thing. If I am working in an emergency room and a 30-year-old comes in who's having a heart attack and says, no, I don't want any treatment, just let me die, right? So we can override that patient's views right there because we can deem that their decisions are harmful to themselves. So we can temporarily label them as not rational thinking and override their personal autonomy. Okay. So moral principles, we'll talk about them. Moral principles are either absolute, right? Absolute just means without exceptions. So we have very few absolute principles, right? So absolute means without exception. And the rest is what we call prima facie. Prima facie says it applies unless we think that there's another way to better do it. So another way to look at it is an absolute principle is deontological, and a prima facie principle is teleological, right? So this is based on outcomes. Right? I like this. Right? My pen keeps going back and forth. So speed limit 25, prima facie. That means unless I have a good reason for breaking it. So anyway, moral principles. we'll come on. So autonomy, so you start to write these down because they're really important because you're going to use them for the whole semester. Autonomy is a person's right to make their own decisions that affect their own future. Non-malfeasance. Right? So doctors take a Hippocratic oath not to do harm, not to knowingly do harm to their patients. In other words, they agree to practice non-malfeasance, right? So not to intentionally or unintentionally affect harm on a person, right? So this is a really important statement for bioethics, right? So in a clinical study, right? In a clinical study, I am not to do harm to my patients. And we're going to talk about this a lot in Chapter 5 coming up. But can this be violated in a double-blind study? Remember, double-blind study, one person gets the therapeutic, while the other gets a placebo. Right? So a placebo is fake. So what if my disease gets worse when I have a placebo, and the other group, their disease gets better when they have a therapeutic? Am I doing non-malfeasance to the placebo group? Right? Am I doing non-malfeasance to the placebo group? And the answer is probably yes. But we use prima facie to say it's better for society if I have one group that suffers and one group that doesn't. Physicians should also practice beneficence. Right? States, in the simplest form, we should do good to others. Right? Many argue there is no duty to harm others, but not to help others. Right? So here's the thing. Beneficence says we should do good. It doesn't say we should not do harm. It says we should do good. Right? So if I have an abundance of food and I see a hungry person, right? If I walk past them, am I practicing non-malfeasance and beneficent? The answer is no. Right? By not sharing what I have, I am maybe not intentionally, but unintentionally inflicting harm on that person who's starving. Beneficence says that I should give them a portion of what I have. So this is hard. Right? These two things are hard for a culture like ours, right? Because we don't always do that, right? By the way, whose job is it to help? Is it society's? Is it government? Is it personal? Right, so that's the big question. Right? Who's so then we're gonna run into these problems, but I'll come back to that. Moral principles, utility. Right? Utility states we should create the best balance of good over bad. So if I'm doing a clinical study, right, and I've got a therapeutic group and a placebo group, and the placebo group is not doing well, and the therapeutic is doing great, right, I could say that I'm practicing utility, right? So the benefit outweighs the risk. So there's a few who are going to suffer, but society, right, the overall good outweighs the bad, right? Justice, right? Everybody is treated equally. So this justice, right, practices universality, and impartiality. So both of those, right, are components of justice. Everybody gets fair what's due, no matter who they are, what race they are, or how much money they have. Justice says everybody gets what's fair. We have two types. We have retributive justice. This is the law. And we have distributive justice, right? Fair and equal education. That's distributive justice. That's not retributive. If someone commits a crime and they go to jail, that's retributive justice, right? So distributive justice, right? So when you look at it at beneficence, right, and non-malfeasance, that's more of. So we talk about right? Beneficence, right? That's more a function of distributive justice. Oops. Let me move this up. All right. There we go. All right, so relativism, right? Relativism means it's relative to the situation. So for ethical relativism, remember ethical is governed by laws and theories. So subjective, the view that the right actions are those that are sanctioned by a person. So this is a function of autonomy, right? It's internally motivated, right? So my actions are right because I feel they're doing the best for society. Cultural view that the right actions are those sanctioned by a culture, right? So my subjective relativism may not mate with the cultural, right? So kind of like if you're looking at abortion, right? Subjective, you may say, well, that's an individual choice, right? Culturally, right? They may make laws that make it illegal again. Or you may think subjectively that it's wrong, but the laws say that it's right. Okay, so, and then lastly, remember, ethics are governed and morals are internal, right? So moral objectivism, moral norms are principles that are true for everybody, right? So if you have to be objective about it, it's just based on data, right? It's different than moral absolutism, right? Moral absolutism does not allow for prima facie. Prima facie, remember, allows me to modify based on the situation, right? So, anyway, that's what we got for today. We got some stuff to talk about. All right, I'll talk to you later.